Visioneers presents SonarVision, the science of seeing with sound.
Never in my life could I have imagined that human beings could learn to see with sound, like bats and dolphins.
Bats are really neat animals, and they have to be able to do everything without relying on vision. And while they're doing this, they're looking for insects, and they're flying several meters per second.
Because the sound a bat makes is beyond the range of human hearing, Simmons uses an ultrasound detector to convert the signals to a frequency we can hear.
So the bats emit sounds and do lots of fast computations in the brain about the arrival time of the echoes coming from different distances. And the trick of sonar is to be able to do these computations quickly enough that you can see the scene before you emit the next sound. Bats actually see with sound.
Perhaps even more astonishing is the fact that some humans are able to do the same thing.
Many of you may have heard me clicking as I came onto the stage with my tongue. Those are flashes of sound that go out and reflect from surfaces all around me.
A number of research projects have shown that people who are blind are in some ways redeploying the visual brain in such a way that they are truly seeing and appreciating the world around them, and that visual brain does light up.
Our visioneering methodology incorporates our specialized form of human echolocation that we call FlashSonar, consisting of flashes of tongue-click echoes reflecting from the surrounding environment, like flashes of light.
Looks like it curves away.
Combined with full-length perception cane training using longer than traditional blind navigation canes. All this produces audible perceptual context that activates the brain's visual cortex to produce a sort of fuzzy spatial geometry that we call SonarVision, seeing with sound.
Professor Lutz Wiegrieber is an expert in bat echolocation, but now in Daniel, he's been given the unique opportunity to study his first human subject.
Wow, that is just very cool.
Today, Lutz is conducting a series of MRI scans to find out what happens inside Daniel's brain when he echolocates.
For me personally, this has been a really great experience because I've been working on the echolocation of bats and we've only recently started working on echolocation with humans. Now having Daniel here around is like almost being able to talk to a bat.
Inside the scanner, Daniel is hearing virtual echoes. This should enable the team to see which parts of his brain are activated when he echolocates in the real world.
These parts of the principal visual cortex are now taken over by auditory information.
But how the human brain turns these sounds into images remained unstudied until researchers peered into the brains of Daniel and fellow echolocator Brian Bushway.
One of the most important questions that we were interested in was what parts of Daniel's brain were activated when he was listening to the echoes coming back from his mouth clicks from the environment.
The difficulty was that imaging their brains required them to lie in the cramped tunnel of an fMRI machine with nothing to echolocate. So instead, they asked Daniel and Brian to echolocate a series of objects and recorded the clicks and their reflected echoes with miniature microphones placed in their ear canals.
They produced the clicks, listened to the echoes, we recorded them, then we played those sounds back to them in a mixed up order to see whether or not they knew what they were. And they did. They were incredibly good at identifying them.
The researchers then analysed their brain activity as they listened. Daniel's visual cortex lit up in response. Brian's was also active, although much less so.
It was interesting that the visual cortex was activated, but what was even more interesting was that when we compared sound files that contained clicks and echoes with sound files that contained only the clicks, that is, we chopped out the echoes and replaced it with background noise, then we found that the visual cortex was incredibly sensitive to the echoes.
Normal sounds didn't have the same increased effect on the visual system. It seems there was something special about the click and echo combination that was feeding the spatial information directly into an area of the visual system known as V1. For sighted people, V1 creates a spatial map that directly reflects the eye's retina.
Try clapping though.
Oh, like the playground.
The human brain by default actually tries to get rid of these echoes. So if a person listens to two sounds in rapid succession, their percept will be dominated by the first sound, which means that they're ignoring the second. So if this is a click and an echo, for example, this means that they would ignore the echo.
See if you can get that to sing back at you. If not, we'll just get closer.
The good thing is, though, that people can be trained to basically be more sensitive to the echoes. So we can untrain this echo suppression.
Another car part. You would do the click, and that sound would bounce off of the object, and that would tell you different things about the object.
Echolocation is literally a way of seeing with sound. You are illuminating an environment with bursts of energy, and you receive that energy as it reflects from surfaces all around you, and your brain catches and processes those reflections in terms of images. That is not a tree. It's a... I don't know what that is. It's a pole of some kind that has flat edges.
He's going to see things like the texture of objects, the shape of objects, the distance of objects.
To me, the most exciting element is the way it completely turns our understanding of disability on its head. You know, instead of seeing this community as a disabled community, we now see them as a community which is cultivating a skill which is very rare and very valuable, and that they need to teach each other. So in some ways, I feel like I'm watching a sensory community form.
Brought something for you guys. Here you go.
So studying somebody like Daniel is really exciting to me. Watching him lead a group to explore the edge of what's possible.
Get her any nicer. Our brain is immensely adaptable. It's immensely plastic. I believe one of the first and foremost functions of our brain is to understand our environment and facilitate interaction with our environment. And the brain will stop at almost nothing to make that happen.
For 8-year-old Nathan Knipp, who has been blind since birth, the world is his playground, not his obstacle.
I'll show you when I'm gonna hit the sun. That's when I hit the sun.
Much of that has to do with his training in echolocation, or clicking, to hear what's around him. Brian Bushway, also blind, is teaching Nathan the technique.
Still click and pay attention. Keep track of those buildings.
Moved it.
I did, huh?
These skills are things that blind people don't typically have access to. And it's not like somebody comes and then all of a sudden you can do everything. You have to keep working at it.
I was just flabbergasted. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, because I didn't think that was ever possible.
The findings brought Daniel a lot of attention. He also landed a pretty sweet nickname. How do you like your nickname, the Batman?
I was at first resistant because I didn't want to be equated to a superhero. Batman, however, is pretty cool.
The teacher's a guy called Brian. He's learned to see what's around him by making a clicking noise which bounces off things. By listening to echoes, he can tell where and even what is in front of him. Basically, he's like a human bat.
Brian Bushway. I checked him out on YouTube, and I must say I was a bit skeptical, but I was blown away at his abilities.
It's almost like a superpower.
We asked him to draw a picture, to recreate from memory the image he got from nothing more than the sound of clicks.
I'll just do a little dashed line here.
And remember, he had never set foot in this pavilion before today. The accuracy of the image is uncanny.
Should I say ta-da? Ta-da!
Batman, in his original incarnation, made himself. His powers and his status came from developing himself out of his own humanity, out of his own personhood, his own character. This could be true for any flesh and blood human being. You don't have to come from Krypton to make the most of who you are.
To learn more about SonarVision, click the subscribe button below. And we invite you to support our work by making a secure online donation at Visioneers.org.